Okay, so I think the most useful way of explaining the company, we'll start kind of bottoms up. So first and foremost, Flipside started out and is at its core a data analytics company. So we started off with Ethereum data. We're now multi-chain going into Solana, Thorchain, Terra. We'll be launching a number of other platforms soon, kind of getting in deeper into EVMs and any new networks that are launching. So there, we'll pull data in real time off of directly from nodes. We parse it, we normalize it, put it into relational databases, and then we have a product, kind of a query engine, essentially on top of it that you can use SQL to query the data. We curate tables, customize them for particular customers, clients, partners, whatever. And then we also have a visualization studio to go along with that. So you can query data, visualize it, analyze it, research, all that good stuff. I will jump in quickly to kind of show you what that all looks like. Matt, could you give me sharing permission, possibly?
Oh, sure, of course. Let's see. Yep. All right, you should have it.
Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, our data kind of runs through. It's the core. It's the lifeblood of the business. On top of that, what we are in now is our query engine, our visualization studio, all the good stuff that a bunch of our analysts in our community that I'll get to explaining shortly. They are setting up queries, writing, and producing analytics in our system here. Just to give you a quick overview of what this looks like. One of these is this is a query. Let's go in and look at it. On the left-hand side here, you can see all of the networks and protocols that we've curated tables and support. So Avi on top of Ethereum, obviously, with Algorand, Anchor on Terra, Astroport on Terra, continues to go down. We have Harmony data now, Terra, we got Thorchain. So this is ever growing, ever expanding. Within that, you can query any table that you want from that data, set up a SQL query here. You can get your results at the bottom and then visualize it. So in this case, this analyst is looking at the price of Luna in May from probably last year's, looks like an old query. So just down here, simple, and then this can be kind of embedded anywhere you want in the dashboard somewhere. From here as well, we have an API capability, so you can API this out, that's customizable. So for any data heads out there, this is your one-stop shop for all your data analytics needs on the blockchain. That's the core of our data analytics. So I will switch over quickly to kind of show the other piece, the learn and earn, but I'll pause there in case anyone has any questions.
Sorry if I missed this. So is this all SQL right here? And then you're SQLing on Luna?
I'm sorry, we're SQLing on what?
Luna?
Yeah, exactly. So what this is essentially doing, this is a basic SQL query. This is querying our price table from the Terra data set, right?
I see.
And then we're filtering on tokens, so the number of tokens on top of Terra. So we're looking at Luna, and then we're pulling the price of that symbol at that time between this current timestamp, and then we're grouping by by day. So then those are the results here, and then we'll visualize. You can visualize in a number of different ways. We could look at a number of transactions on Luna over time, and we could parse it down to a number of transactions made by a certain user type, and then we could create pie charts and whatever it is. So we're slicing and dicing the data in a number of different ways. We have a ton of tutorials for SQL as well if you want to dig in there, but that's the general idea. Are you guys any SQL savvy folks in the audience?
We have a combo of CS guys and BIT guys, but I don't know if anyone here knows about SQL.
Well, we can help with that. So get involved in our bounties that I'll be talking about shortly. But yeah, if that's all the questions. So cool. So just to recap a bit before I transition out of here, the two aspects of our business: one, data analytics company, Query Engine, our primary product is part of the data, SQL, and Visualization Studio. As part of that, about a year ago, we were building dashboards for clients using our data, and this tool here was actually our backend solution, more or less, that we were using to build and visualize those for clients. Eventually, we realized that the way that we can start to scale and and reach the audiences that we wanted to start building a community. And so we kind of flipped the data model on its head. We opened up and made this whole platform completely free. So this is all free, by the way. You can sign up. We'll drop a link in the chat shortly. All of this data, so basically made the platform free and then partnered with clients to set up a bounty program where we now partner with blockchain networks, protocols like Terra and Thorchain, who we have a business relationship with them where we earn yield. A portion of that yield goes to the community of analysts that we've built. Those analysts will produce queries using this data set, and then they essentially get paid for their earnings, and then the client gets a number of benefits from that process. So I'll dive into a quick presentation to show you, but so that's the idea. Flipside, think of it, data company first, and then now we're going into the bounty program. So Flipside is has an in-depth learn to earn platform. There are two essential types of bounties that we run. So the first is Scavenger Hunts. These are kind of high-level, simpler bounties, don't require necessarily digging into SQL and doing it. So I'll kind of show you our platform here on our website. So here is the Flipside website. You can kind of see we have a number of opportunities here to get involved. Right here, this page is our drops page. So anything from our two types of bounties are all available here. Scavenger Hunts, again, simpler kind of form. You can just go in. They can be as simple as, hey, set up a wallet, go make a transaction on this platform, and prove to us that you did it, and then you get validated and you can earn. Then on the other side of that, we have actually more in-depth analytics bounties where you can go solve anything from easy to advanced bounties using SQL that will do more in-depth analyses like what is the most popular background assets and how are they being swapped on dexes. You can kind of scroll down here and you can claim different bounties that are being performed on the platform. So again, using our data sets, we've now constructed a really complex bounty program and process that is targeted to educating users, onboarding into the platforms, teaching them about SQL, and then getting assets into their hands so that they can start to utilize these platforms. Does that make sense? I'll pause there. I know that was a lot. And any questions on how that works? All
right. Can you expand a little bit more on like scavenger hunts? Like, is that would you say the best way to onboard new users for Flipside, and also like how would new users go about getting integrated into the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there actually brings me to, so I'll answer your question with kind of a little more context on like our business focus, which is a great push. Thanks, David. So as part of our bounty program, when we talk to our partners and we say, hey, we have this crazy community, it's about 9,000 strong right now of analysts in the Flipside Discord working on bounties. And they come to us and say, well, what value add do these users and these analysts in your ecosystem, what do they provide? So the obvious first one is we provide them data analytics. So if they have any questions, they can come to us, we bounty them out, we can solve them, and then provide that data to them to make business decisions. But also because our community is so strong and kind of more advanced than the average user, we can bring both new users to them to actually use their platforms, which can be directed through the scavenger hunts, as David alluded to, or just in solving bounties, maybe they're more inclined to start using the platforms that they're learning about. The other piece is pretty widely known in the industry is what I consider to be marketing tactics, which are, airdrops and liquidity mining, which are incentives for people to use platforms. And so, that would fall like under a project's marketing budget potentially. And so what we provide is another avenue for that, where you can take a slice of the tokens you may allocate for airdrops or liquidity mining and distribute them through bounty programs to analysts. And so the great thing about what we found through our programs is that because you're kind of targeting it's a very niche audience of analysts, people who are really interested in learning about the platform, that the retention of those tokens is insane. So for a liquidity mining program, or an airdrop, you're going to airdrop it to folks who are just going to sell it on a platform. For Flipside, we're seeing 70%, 80% retention rates. So these folks are keeping the tokens and using the platform, which has been pretty amazing to watch. So that's kind of our value add to our partners. And then to the users in our community that we're building, we're providing education. People can come to our platform, do the scavenger hunts, get interested, start advanced to beginner level data analysis and research, start to learn SQL, and then you can continue digging in. And as part of that, you start to learn about how crypto projects work, and you can kind of learn as you go, essentially. And then all of that, again, just utilizing Flipside data more or less to reach those answers and then provide that data. And the last piece I'll add to that is for our community members, who you guys can absolutely come and start participating in these bounties. They're open to everyone. You start to get exposure to these projects as well. We have a number of analysts in our community who have been hired by crypto projects because of their data analysis chops that they developed working with Flipside. So yeah, that's the general idea, just to kind of show you, showcase some of the data analyses that are being produced. On this page here, our resources, we have that are all projects here. I have no idea actually what's going to come up, but just to show you what's produced. This one is looking at unique users on L1 platforms. Looks like it's probably comparing Solana and Ethereum and Terra. So this is more research oriented, as you can see here, but they're providing the methodology they use to define this. And then they're looking into, unique wallet sends per day, kind of just an overview of the different types of metrics that we can derive on the platform.
Just out of curiosity, hey, is it Avi or Avi? Sorry.
Avi.
Avi, hi, I'm Sammy. I joined in a little later.
No worries.
So would this platform be used by complete beginners or people who just know a few things about crypto?
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of how it's designed. So I would think of it on a spectrum. So our scavenger hunts are a place to start and start to learn kind of the simple procedures to get a wallet, or to make a transaction on a platform, or to perform some type of simple skill to use a project's product, all the way up to like advanced ones. So the idea is to you can progress through those opportunities to learn, so that you can start to kind of build up your skills, essentially. So yeah, beginner to advanced.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are you, Sammy, are you looking to get involved? Do you have any SQL chops? Are you looking to learn more about crypto? Like, where are you in your journey?
Yeah, so Avi, I'm an industrial engineering student. I worked a lot in the tobacco space, and I kind of want to get into more tech. And I've thrown my money in a little bit of few coins here and there, but
yeah,
it's just a malaise every time I try to understand this. It's a very hard industry to understand, and sometimes even we have, like, Matt brings in speakers, and they're very smart people, but most of the students are not. I'll just talk about myself. We're not technically able to understand sometimes, but I can totally follow along with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's very common. One of the reasons we started, so David can see, I'm working on some programs with universities, and we're starting to speak to them more often, because there is this is a big chasm between what the crypto industry requires for people who are particularly interested or want to come in, and what university curriculums are providing right now. And so it's advancing quickly, but we want to bridge that gap a little bit. It is kind of advanced, it's developing outside of academia a bit. And it's so new. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's the impetus for us to start these education programs, because we're identifying that was a big issue. So definitely a good place to start. It would be to come and join us. Our community is huge. We love grabbing the beginners, and there's a ton of people in there to help you. No questions, a stupid one kind of thing. So simplest things to advance. Definitely a safe space to get started if you want to kind of dig in a little more.
Well, thank you for doing this, Avi.
Yeah, of course. Cool. Yeah, so I guess that actually reminded me of just an anecdotal piece as well, kind of like who our target audience is. So we obviously are working, we're cultivating analysts in the community to create analyses for our partners, and that's kind of the flywheel that we're targeting a bit, right? We have demand on the protocol side with our network partners to distribute tokens in an effective way and get research that's useful for them. But we also want to make sure that we have like a hotbed of folks coming in to, learn and progress on the platform, because, but that personality or that user type it varies. Sammy, you said to me that triggered this is, yeah, well, I've been investing a bit, but it's all a bit overwhelming. If you're a data-driven person, you can come to our platform and start to try and like parse a piece apart what's making sense, whatever, and supplement that with some qualitative data and information as you're, reading and whatever. So I think like whether, we obviously are thinking about analysts who want to understand data to explain market trends, but also oftentimes we'll get investors in there as well to use the data. They may not be our target audience necessarily, but anyone can kind of leverage our data for their whatever purposes they have. Yeah.
And Avi, do you guys sell the data, or is this open?
Yeah, so I probably should have been a little more clear about that up front. But all of this whole platform is free to users. The whole opportunity here is to just make money using our platform, really. Everything is probably, so it's basically like, it's funded by our partners, more or less, right? So through our business relationships, because they're getting users and token retention, targeted marketing schemes, essentially, plus research. So they're kind of funding these models, and we're facilitating that process through our bounty programs.
I see. Thank you.
Let me share a deck I have. I'm going to skip through it a little bit, but it's pretty informative in terms of like what Flipside does. It's for you guys, I figure it's AMA kind of thing. The focus for our bounty programs is, how can we educate and activate ecosystem participation, right? So it's like, how can we get analysts and interested people in the community to start using platforms and incentivize them to kind of grow through the process? And so that's a general idea. We've developed schemes to develop questions for bounties to drive this. And so what it really boils down to through our learn to earn process is we'll have, looking at acquisition, right? So program metrics like, we had a Uniswap program where 90% of the people that were participating in these programs had never used Uniswap before. Terra was a little less. And so we're starting to see, we're also, through our process, we're introducing new users to platforms, bringing liquidity to them, bringing knowledge. And so that's kind of like one of the key drivers, as well as the retention metric that I've been talking about. There was a uni airdrop last year, and I think after the second day, there was this ridiculous percentage, like 80% had already liquidated their assets. I forget the exact number. And that's compared to our programs where literally 72% are still retaining. I don't think this number is quite as high now, but 97% at one time, which was reasonable, like 6 months after. People are staking their Luna in that case because they have somewhere to put it, but they're not just taking the money and running. They are invested in the ecosystem. They want to understand it. And so we're kind of bringing those targeted users to these platforms, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. When it says in the ecosystem, does that mean for Uniswap, for example, does that mean within Ethereum or within Uniswap? And then same for Terra?
For Uniswap, it'd be like they would get the token and then LP it or something. So it'd be, or I guess in this case, it would be, they didn't like send it to an exchange and dump it. Like they still own the asset, whether they LP'd it and have that LP token for Uniswap. For Luna, yeah, it would be they either, maybe they dropped it in Anchor or they staked their Luna. Yeah, that's the idea.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah. All right. So, that's kind of the core of what we're doing. I'll take a brief moment to talk about governance, our governance team that David's joined me on. So as we've seen these ecosystems evolve, we've been in the industry for a long time, and we've seen, we are here through DeFi summer, and we've watched these protocols, and I'm going to kind of give you a little view into my framing of what's happening in the industry. But you see these protocols finding product market fit, they're evolving quickly. And so they need to find ways to manage themselves. And this word that's being thrown around a lot recently is governance. And the reason is kind of like you had all these DAOs were emerging, and the big thing was DAOs. And then governance came. And really what's happening is these products are starting to gather liquidity, they're starting to become profitable, and then they need to figure out in this idealistic decentralized world, how they can manage themselves. And so governance comes in there. As we had a number of proposals that we brought forward, and we realized that traditional ways of doing business were evolving, and we needed to understand the mechanisms at play, how DAOs would manage themselves, how the industry was evolving. And so we kitted up our governance team in order to focus on that. And so it kind of is a testament to where we see the industry moving. We see these organizations starting to evolve quickly, figure out how to manage themselves at scale, and do it through decentralized means, through governance, figuring out how can we collectively get all of these people to make decisions together? It doesn't have to be through token weighted models. It can be through just kind of using Discord bots and setting precedents on discourse forums and things like that. And so we're watching this stuff evolve. These DAOs evolve incredibly quickly at the core protocol level. And then at the network level, we're watching this multi-chain world, this bridged world really come together pretty quickly. If you want to start to move assets from Terra to Solana, that's pretty advanced. People building bridges everywhere, Thorchain in itself has a number of bridges that I wouldn't necessarily compare to other platforms that are out there, but because they're kind of their own decks, but that's kind of multi-chain future is developing quickly. And so being multi-chain as a business is a priority for us as well. Because, for a long time, if you were in the industry 2 or 3 years ago, it was this debate about Ethereum is going to be the only one left. And you have all these Ethereum killers. And what seems more reasonable to me is that you have these networks that become more specialized. They become dependent on different networks. Some will become their own entities themselves. Maybe there's a future where Ethereum is the hub for all, DeFi primitives, financial primitives that are evolving. So DeFi is huge on Ethereum, but then Solana kind of dominates the gaming and the NFT world because its infrastructure is faster transactions and it's cheaper, maybe a little less centralized, or a little less decentralized. It's more centralized because of its architecture. So, and they'll have a head start, and Ethereum's obviously looking to move to proof of stake, but that's going to take a while. And a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in crypto is literally an eternity in any other industry. So a lot can change, but that's why I believe strongly in a multi-chain ecosystem. I don't think that any one chain can evolve quickly to outrun others. I think it's logical to think, especially with the infrastructure and the money coming into the space, that it will continue to move in that direction. So yes, I guess, I'll pause there. Any questions? Yeah, Sammy?
Yeah, Avi, so when I think of crypto, because I have such a limited background, I think most of the work is software engineering, and I wanted to learn what is else out there. So when you mentioned governance, is that a strategy role? Is that a product manager in a tech company? Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, that's a great question. So definitely the tech piece, and that's kind of how a bit of the example I was using with how DAOs are evolving, where you had the tech was the focus, right? People were figuring out how consensus mechanisms worked and how simple protocols work, but the development happens really fast. In a year, incredible advances. And so to your point, now what's happening is you have to look at what DAOs are facilitating. So DAOs are enabling communities to more actively manage funds and crowdsource and start to operate in these kind of amorphous decentralized structures where power is more diffuse. Instead of having like one head who dictates everything, you have a lot of people who can own and have a part. But what you're really creating is kind of like incentive structures for community building. And so in order to do that effectively, like any industry needs kind of direction and needs directives. So you need people that are leading the DAO to make those. So then you just all kind of boil it up in community. So you have people that know how to like motivate folks to come get involved and participate and make decisions. And so community, in a sense, for regular orgs, Sammy, kind of to draw it back, is like client engagement, maybe a bit of product, kind of baked into these community focused roles that are evolving. Partnering, I would say, I can probably speak a little more astutely to, would be a mix of business development, partner engagement, a bit of brand marketing maybe. So some business decisions and allocations of like DAO treasuries. So like these protocols, they have tokens, they have treasuries. So every percentage of tokens released goes to the treasury, and then they basically open it up there where the DAO, any token holders can manage that treasury. So any, a governance team like Flipside can go to a protocol. This is called like B to D, so business to DAO kind of thing, can go to a protocol, put up a proposal and say, hey, I want 100,000 tokens to operate X thing. Here's why. And then each distinct DAO will say, well, it has a procedure. So some are really strict and say you have to put up a proposal and get feedback, and then put up another proposal, get more feedback. They make it hard. They can't just like run, and they don't want people like trying to grab, steal from the bank kind of thing. And so that tends to be kind of business development oriented, but it's also these forums where a lot of the conversation in DAOs happen, are also where just people generally want to discuss things. And so there's like a support model there that you can have as a partner to these protocols as well. So I hope that helps. I mean, it's all tech, but it's also like think of like, your question is good, is great, because it's kind of like, okay, well, it's alluding to the fact that any business that's going to be developing has to have certain functions, right? You have to have a product to sell. You have to have people building that product, people building product, people guiding product, people selling product, people marketing that product. Like it's all the traditional forms of business, but they're kind of like, evolving and taking shape in that way. Yeah.
Gotcha, Avi. So what I got from that was like, it is a marketing strategy role for crypto. So you have to learn the technical intricacies of the business or how things work, and then promote it, as you say, promote building the community, promote what type of incentive structures and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, inherent, if you have a technical brain, if you're technically oriented, or, then it will help you kind of understand some of the underlying tech that you're dealing with. But there's also plenty of room to understand if you are more community focused and you still have like a business finance type mind. There's plenty of space, and that part of the industry is actually expanding because there's more business happening now because these products are starting to evolve and grow.
I'm really glad you explained this, and because I was always under the impression it's just software engineers doing stuff, and it's kind of nice because I'm not a CS major, so that's good.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, there's a ton of opportunity out there, and I would say like now is a great time to be sniffing around. If you came in the industry 2 years ago, I'd probably tell you there was a lot more tech being built and not as much opportunity, but that's really quickly changing. All right. Yeah, I guess that's really all I had. If we can go on, if any more questions here, we can open it up to the floor. I'm happy to answer anything you're curious about.
Yeah, thanks, Avi. That was great. If we got some more questions, I have a general question about where do you see the space going overall with like geopolitics going on. Like we see Russia is potentially accepting Bitcoin for oil. We see El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. Like where do you think the space is going?
Up and to the right.
Yeah, up into
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best guy to speak like, you know, macroeconomics and its impact on Bitcoin necessarily. I do have my fears around like kind of like rogue nations potentially onboarding Bitcoin and the effect it would have on markets here in the US and kind of like the government's posture towards the asset. I do feel like there's, you know, outside of the industry is still pretty reliant on Bitcoin. So that's important. And like, it's certainly concerning. But you know, it's lame to say I believe in the underlying tech, but I do. I think that like what's happening with DAOs is really, it's real. Like NFTs are a proven space. Gaming is a proven space. And I think that I was really just like writing up a tweet about this actually, but it's like, I'm curious about the intersection of like DAOs and crypto and, you know, traditional businesses. Like what I was struggling with for a little while was, you know, what does that look like in practice? And I just don't think that, you know, in 30 years necessarily, I mean, you'll have huge DAOs potentially that are managing large products, but I don't know what happens to like the existing large companies essentially that are how do they incorporate the Web3 world, this emerging space, right? And it's not like you know, McDonald's is going to wake up tomorrow and become a DAO. Like that's just not going to happen, right? But what I think could happen is you start to see them incorporate DAOs into their business models. Like why not, with all that funding, spin out a McDonald's DAO that manages marketing specifically to Web3. You know, McDonald's has so much money. If they took a $50 million check and funded a treasury and trusted it with, you know, people who knew how to operate DAOs and turned that into an arm of the business, then like they're playing in Web3. The main decisions, I don't want a DAO deciding where I'm getting my hamburger. But like I would buy an NFT from McDonald's if it was, you know, I was speculating on it or it got me free access to a Big Mac somewhere or something, right? So it's like, it's changing the paradigm and changing the mindset to understand like where that's going. And so I think as DAOs evolve and become more mainstream, I think you'll start to really see like traditional businesses start to incorporate them. And at the same time, on the far end of the spectrum, you're going to see some really badass DAOs evolve and become super influential. And like, they're going to be DAOs and it's going to be crazy. So I think that's going to happen too.
Yeah. I think one thing that would be really cool is if a sports team became a DAO, like an NBA team or an NFL team.
Yeah.
You voted on community governance for.
Well, I mean, the Packers are kind of like that. I think they're community owned. Right, to some extent.
Yeah. Someone mentioned that to me. I thought that was pretty cool. So
yeah,
they could be one of the first to take on an official model like that.
Imagine give any like season ticket holder an NFT with Aaron Rodgers' face on it.
Yeah, there you
get
go.
access to stuff. Yeah.
Also, how did you get into crypto?
Oh, good question. So I was working in traditional finance world for probably 9 years, doing consulting, product marketing, and I worked next to a kid who was mining Bitcoin in his bedroom. And I'd love to tell you that I was sold hook, line, and sinker. I ran my own rig. I made, you know, I wouldn't be here. I'd be on an island if I did. But I was very skeptical, and I didn't really get it. But I was red pilled at that point, you know, to some extent, I guess, apparently. And about a year later, I really kind of fell, probably around 2017, I fell down the rabbit hole, as they say, started doing a ton of research, getting really involved in different forums, and just kind of knew that was my next step. And so I went on the job market. I met Dave, our CEO, and Flipside was literally just launching. It was like there were like 4 guys in a room. So I joined as an analyst and a trader. And then, yeah, I guess they say the rest is history. So, yeah.
How'd you meet Dave?
Really funny. He was from a previous role. He knew my best friend, and they had like worked together. He was a commercial real estate broker, and I think they had worked on like office space together, and they knew and they stayed close. And then my buddy introed me, and that was that. Yeah, Dave. I lived in Boston at the time too, and Dave's kind of a known quantity in Boston. He's a 7-time CEO. It's a pretty impressive resume of companies. And I met him. He was looking for a marketer. At any early stage business, you kind of know what you want. You kind of more want like people that can do certain jobs. You kind of have an idea, and you just bring them on and then figure it out. I think I've had probably like 12 to 15 different roles here at Flipside. We're kind of all in the same vein. I have like, I can do a couple songs and dances that work. So yeah.
Avi, could you speak to, this is a general question. Why would Americans choose to start paying with crypto instead of the regular dollar?
Good question. Well, I guess ease of use, maybe. If there were, instead of paying with American dollar, if places started to accept, say, like USDC, and they had an integration on the phone that you could just do it easier, maybe you'd be more inclined to hold crypto. If I guess, in case you lost trust in the US dollar, you could find another asset that maybe had a better peg if that started to happen. I don't know. I guess thinking of like reasons why you would maybe hold a dollar alternative, like a stable coin instead of the US dollar. I could think of, USDC, for example, is an interesting asset. It's fully backed. It's fully collateralized by actual dollars escrowed in a bank. It's not like an algorithmic stable coin. But then you can utilize that. It's kind of like, think about getting into a stable coin, like you exchange a quarter for a quarter of Chuck E. Cheese, and you still need two Chuck E. Cheese tokens to play a game. The USDC is the same way in that you can put $100 in, you have 100 USDC, but then you can utilize crypto. You can go earn, you can earn up to 15, 20% on certain platforms with that asset. And then you could earn that. And then maybe you'd be more inclined to like spend it because you just have it in your wallet, right? And so you can't just do that with USD dollars. You have to kind of get on the rails of the crypto networks. So I guess like short answer would be ease of use, network incentives, things like that.
Yeah, I'm from Iraq, and people generally like to store their money in dollars because they can trust that it's not likely to fluctuate and they get screwed over because it's stable versus the dinar, the currency.
Yeah.
So now I could see what you mean.
Yeah, well, that's a really that you're kind of jumping into something else that was talked about a lot when I joined the industry, and I'm actually a little sad that like people don't talk about it more, which was this idea of financial inclusion. And as an American citizen, I didn't really understand the concept of money and how fragile it was, as well as someone who, grew up in Iraq or grew up in Argentina or any of these other a country with hyperinflation or whatever that has seen their currencies, depreciate and, like you're just like throwing it up in the air like it's toilet paper. And I heard a really cool analogy that really drove this home for me, which was like Americans and money. It's like a fish swimming through water, right? You kind of just like take it for granted that it's like lubricated and it's there. And so the concept that like you would need to keep your money in another asset because it would depreciate is like foreign. I mean, obviously if like you won $1 million in 1970 and you left it in a bank and didn't invest it, like that's not a good idea. But over like short periods of time, 10, 15 shorter time horizons, you don't see that happen. And so crypto did offer a promise to if you're living in Argentina or you're living in Iraq and you want to have an easy way to get, let's say you get your paycheck, you get a remittance payment overseas, and you want to keep that in US dollars or in a bank or in some form that not local currency, then like that is an amazing use case for crypto. Something that some Americans just don't understand unless you get deep into it. And so, yeah, it's a great point. I just think that like it's a really hard problem to solve. And so especially a few years ago, there were lots of teams that were trying to like really visibly, publicly kind of solve this problem. I don't think a lot of them had a ton of success. I think a lot of progress has been made, but there's definitely a bit of a less of a focus on that in our industry as a whole now, because kind of like DeFi and NFTs and DAOs have kind of taken off. And so I kind of wish that there was a little more refocus on that. Kind of like idealistic vision is at the heart of a lot of the tech that's been created, you know?
I see. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I don't have any more questions. If no one else has questions, really appreciate it, Avi, taking your time to come speak about Flipside Crypto.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. David, if you guys want to get involved, like come join us, join our community. We'd love to get you, ramped up, answer your questions, anything you're interested in. So we have a Discord where all that action happens, and then you can sign up for our data platform to start solving bounties and dig into the data. So David will send those links across. You can drop them in here, maybe David, or maybe throw it into cool, and then drop it in Discord as well.
Yeah.
And come join us. Tell them Avi sent you, and everyone will be happy to see you. So, Matt, Sammy.
Avi, one last question. So, I hate that I'm hogging the questions because I want other people to engage.
No worries.
But since the call seemed to be ending, I asked Matt when I joined late. I'm like, did Avi mention if Flipside has any job opportunity for entry-level students? Could you speak to that if that's a thing right now?
Yeah, sure. I probably should have mentioned that. We are absolutely hiring across the board. So lots of open positions. We will also share that in the Discord. I'll share a link to our job openings. I'm hiring for internships. We have all of our departments are looking for summer interns, full-time positions, et cetera. So yes, come apply, chat with us.
Yeah, I'm graduating, and most of the work that I'm looking at seems more manufacturing and is more mundane to me right now. So.
Yeah, come to the bleeding edge. It's fun over here. David knows. David, what do you think? I don't know. David, you speak. What's been your experience so far?
It's been great. Sammy, I'm thinking similar lines with you. I'm not so hype on supply chain and manufacturing. So I know I had to work in crypto. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the team and Avi, and I've loved it so far. What am I in, like week 6 or 7?
Yeah, David's been absolutely crushing it. Yeah, he's been slaying. He's been an amazing asset on the team. So
thank you for that. Avi, interestingly, just experience in manufacturing is that this is literally worlds apart when you talk about crypto, and you said it's a lifetime, 3 to 5 years, because in manufacturing, to move up or to have any change or any say, it takes so much years of seniority and so much money to change a tiny thing in the process or to add a new line. Versus here, it seems like things are moving so quickly that it just keeps your work more dynamic and less repetitive.
Yeah.
In engineering, we're the fun stuff happens when things break down. That's what, working in the flavor department of Marlboro, when an operator is hit in the eye with ethanol or something, that's when it's like, okay, now we get to do actual work.
Yeah.
Then other than that, you're maintaining continuous processes happening 100 years. So it's just so
that's really interesting you say that. From another perspective, so we have a saying in crypto a bit. It's move fast and break things. Everything in crypto, especially 3-4 years ago, and it was still today, the more clunky it is, the cooler it is in a sense. It's just this weird ethos, but it's because there's not as much focus on UI because the products are changing so often. It's why would I spend all this time making this button really easy to use and this user experience really nice when this product is just one piece of 1,000 things that need to be built. So to your point, I'm thinking that it's funny why it's so interesting, especially for, folks who are building, is because, they're constantly breaking things. Things are always breaking. And they're always getting fixed, and there's always problems to solve. And we're so early, we're so far away, and things evolve. Like I've been here for 3.5 years, and I feel like I've seen like 10 times more here, maybe even more than that, than I ever did in my old role. Because as you're saying, it's like the industries have been established, right? Like there's been decades have been spent establishing it. So it is boring, right? Like these companies, there's too much money on the line for them not to have boring kind of, I mean, it's not boring. They're great jobs. But like to have, to find that stability for them to promise growth to investors and all that stuff. So, the crypto is a bit of a wild west in that sense. It's like finding itself. And so the opportunities are open. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man. Yeah, I call them maintainer roles, but yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you can, there's opportunities to avoid the maintainer role in crypto if you're inclined. But I'm happy to, I think one recommendation I'd say, if anyone out there, Sammy, especially if you are interested in getting involved in crypto, one thing is that I look for, so maybe a little tip on, I'm actively hiring for our governance team. And I think I had like a 70 I was away for 2 weeks, and I had like 70 applications for my open internship role. Like it's insane. People are like incredibly motivated. There is a difference between saying you're interested in crypto and like being in crypto, right? All of the communities are wide open. You can go into a DAO today after this call and start contributing, right? And so we look a lot for folks because, there are 19, 20, 21-year-old kids who are launching their own protocols, who are getting full-time jobs, getting badass internships because they've chosen to be active, right? Like the onboarding, like David, when David showed up, David knew more about crypto, more about Cosmos, more about Algorand than anyone on the team. So it was like an obvious choice to bring him on because he had the chops, right? And so that's what you're up against, right? You're up against people that have done the work already. And so, but it's easy. It's not easy to do. It takes time, but the opportunities are there. If you want to run at it, you can. And so if you want to set yourself apart from other applicants, you can start doing the work now.
And that's one of my favorite parts about it too, is that, all the information's already out there. You just have to go use it and learn it, and it's right there. There's no college classes for learning about these different protocols or DAOs, but you've got Google, you've got, you go participate, go use the protocols. And that's one of the coolest parts about it all.
Yeah.
It's wide open, like you said.
Yeah.
And when you guys say participate in communities, do you mean like in authorizing transactions, you're a person who helps things move?
No, like even on a simpler level, like if you just want to go to, I don't know, any DAO, you could find, I'm trying to think, there's so many DAOs, it's like hard to even pick one. The simplest one, Uniswap, everyone knows Uniswap, it's a DEX. Go to the Uniswap Discord, go see what's happening in the DAO, and you can find opportunities to step up and help out with something, like write documentation for this or help lead an X thing. And you can just start to contributing. These are open organizations that anyone can go and join. And if you contribute enough to the protocol or to the DAO, then maybe you can start getting compensated for it, and you can open up opportunities for yourself. Or, go to Flipside, go to us and start doing bounties and start getting better at bounties and start releasing your results and start adding people on Twitter and, talk with them about what's happening and build up your cachet. And as a data analyst, earn money and also like build credentials, and you can do it today, so that's like contributing literally not just on like building code, like you're thinking like technically, but also just like being involved and active and learning about these protocols and how the industry works.
My final question, I swear I'll leave you guys.
Okay.
What are the technical skills for a non-software engineer in the cryptocurrency? Is it mostly SQL and data analysis?
Probably I mean, it runs the gamut from, front end work. You could be building front end applications for protocols. You could learn, there's a number of probably the highest value ones now are learning the programming languages of these blockchains. So like if you went and learned Solidity, which is what the smart contract language for Ethereum, right there. Like it's difficult, but if you have experience in other programming languages, you have a leg up to go and start to like learn how to do that yourself. And then you can become extremely, so if you're an engineer, if you know any CS or you want to get started in it, that would be a good avenue. Yeah.
I see. No, I meant more specifically for non-CS roles. What are the technical skills? So like kind of David and you in governance.
Technical skills. Google Docs. No,
I see.
I mean, I think like you want to. I know SQL from my previous job, but you don't have to know SQL, right?
Okay.
I think there's really not, it's more of a capacity to understand technical concepts than there is to actually use them, right? That's probably the big thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, Avi, thanks again for coming out and telling us about Flipside.
Thanks for having me, David, Matt. Thanks, awesome guys. Sammy, great chatting. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good one.